Hey everybody, Anna Kooiman here. Great to see you. I am with my birthing team right now. This is Nadine Richardson, who is the founder of She Births, and Dr. Jan Dudley, my OBGYN, who is the one who caught my baby almost 9 months ago. And now Brooks is happy and healthy, and we had a great birth experience. I was able to have him naturally with no drugs. It was one of the worst days of my life for a few of those hours, and then it was the best day as soon as I got to hold him in my arms. But I do think that the experience I had with you at She Births and learning how to labor and how to deal with the pain helped me to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing having a baby, let alone having a posterior position, and I think you did remarkably well. And to go in with the strategies, I'm sure would have been helpful to have a caregiver that you know and you trust that can help at that pointy end as well is a really important thing.
I'm going to ask you, what is She Births?
So She Births is a childbirth education program. It was created by myself 10 years ago. We prepare pregnant families as best we can with holistic and evidence-based tools, and it's a scientifically verified program as well. It's gone through RCTs, and we help to reduce interventions and increase maternal satisfaction. So we're about having positive, better births, but making every birth beautiful no matter what unfolds.
Well, I had several friends tell me about your program, and that's why I got involved. And I also had several friends tell me about you. And you never know what's going to happen on the day of. And I was hoping to have a natural birth and not to have drugs, but I was also going to forgive myself if I did have to, and not beat myself up about it, or at least that was the plan. Dr. Dudley, do mothers who have gone through birthing programs like She Births labor any differently than moms who are maybe going in there blind?
Look, I guess you can get lucky with your birth and you can go in blind and still have an amazing birth. But in general, I think women who've prepared for the birth have a much better sense of the different stages of labour, what to expect at different times. If things aren't going quite to plan, some strategies to try and assist with dealing with that, to stay mentally tough, I think, through the process, and physically it is so hard sometimes, and it can be a frustrating process when you're not perhaps progressing the way you think you would be, that you've imagined. So I think the preparation for most women is a really positive, beneficial thing, even if they don't quite get the birth that they perhaps planned for. I think everyone should rejoice in their babies when they're born, and it should never be a disappointment. It's an amazing achievement growing a beautiful baby, and personally for me, motherhood's been the most extraordinary experience, and the joy my children give me is beyond anything else I've done. So I love sharing that journey with women, and however it works out, we try and make the birth as positive and rewarding as we possibly can. Look, birthing is obviously a very ancient art. Women have been doing it for thousands and trillions of years. I think it's a much safer process for most women now, certainly in first world countries. I think the choices that women have in the births that they have as options for them have improved.
One thing I loved about giving birth to Brooks, and now that he's older, I see my husband being such a good father to him, but he was also a good partner, coming to all the appointments. His work was super flexible and let him come to most of the appointments with you and doing the classes, Nadine with She Births, and it just made me feel so comfortable having him there to be my advocate and knowing what all the options were, because he'd taken the time to get educated. How important do you think that is?
I actually think that's a massive change that's occurred, particularly over the last 20 years, where partners are very much more involved, both during the antenatal period in preparation for childbirth and learning roles and ways they can be useful during childbirth, and really being a major cheer squad member on the day, and really critically, that didn't really happen 20 years or more before. So I think that's been a very major change. Also, Dad staying afterwards in the postnatal period and the deliveries is really a big thing that wasn't around.
I just can't even imagine if my husband wasn't there. I would have been so angry. But I guess that's just times have changed, right? And decades ago that wasn't common.
But I reckon it's criminal to send a dad into the room without education, you know, without some prep, because as women we haven't been exposed to birth. Like, you hadn't been at a birth, right, prior to...
No, oh no.
And being at a birth is kind of different still to watching a movie, a bit of exposure therapy we try through education.
I didn't quite understand how messy birth was until I watched all the videos in She Births.
Yeah.
Then I kind of freaked out a little bit, but it was also
and
like,
women
yes,
are going
it
to
was
scream a
eye-opening.
bit, and you know.
You see, I guess in my world that's every day.
Exactly.
That's what
Yeah.
I do. And I think as an obstetrician it's very easy to forget that this is this woman's first experience.
Yeah, that's hard.
And often their first real medical experience as well. So
Yeah.
not just a birth, but being in the medical system and being around doctors and hospitals and nurses and midwives, and it can be a bit confronting, and that's my everyday world. And that's why I think Nadine's program to sort of provide education and provide that link between what I assume is my normal world
Yes.
and what
Yeah, I'm like the bridge. There
And
we
do you
go,
know what
the
I
bridge.
also really like is your She Births program has a diet that you can follow, or not a diet, but a lifestyle of healthy
But not
principles.
prescriptive in any way.
Right.
Because we have Italians, you know, that do the course,
Exactly.
and they want to eat
And I
their
like
wheat
to eat
and
my
their dough.
avocado toast, and I did. But I also did the dates and the raspberry tea and things like that, and tried to eat lots of vegetables and lean meats and water and all of that. But I remember talking to you and going, look, going on this diet completely is more stressful to me than, and you're like, what? Don't do that. You know, why don't you pick and choose what works for you? You do the thing that works, and that's I don't know. I liked that. I liked being able to pick and choose
Absolutely.
what was going to work for me.
It's the picking and choosing that also becomes empowering, you know, feeling engaged in the choices for your life and engaged in that decision making prior to and during the birth experience. That's what creates a sense of empowerment. And you can't do it without knowledge, without some education, without a platform to understand the choices you are making. And that's how you form your family. You start from those choices as well.
I guess I'd really like for viewers who are moms to be, and you know, maybe first-time moms to be, to hear from you. What is the proper way to push, and what is the proper way to try to breathe through it? Just a few little takeaway points that you could share.
For me,
Yeah, go Jan,
I think-
you go first.
having a baby is all about surrendering. It's
Beautiful.
about letting go. And then, since you're very young, you're trained to hold things in, hold everything in. And as that baby's coming out, what you really have to do is surrender and go with it and not fight it, and relax your pelvic floor as much as you can and let that baby's head come down. And try really hard. The contractions are very intense, but try and relax really between the contractions. And to use that intensity to empower you, I guess. And it hurts a lot.
Yeah, it does.
There's no
It
question.
does.
But the women, I think, that can surrender get this amazing sense of that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So for me, that would be my hot tip.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Is
It
to
is.
find a way to relax through it, because
Yeah.
that's, rather than hold it in, if you relax.
And
Okay.
just go with it. Trust your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's like that. And sometimes, you know, we're there and there's a vaginal exam. We find out the dilation, and it kind of comes back to the woman. It's like, I got to let go some more. You know, and then there's a bit more letting go and a bit more letting go. I remember we were at a birth and it was a bit like that, like the peeling back of the onion of the surrender. I got to go deeper. I got to let go a little bit more. I think pushing is such an interesting topic, and people talk about it a lot because women are so afraid of perineal tears and trauma, and there's a lot of fear around forceps, and there's debates going on all the time. I think it's really important to firstly know that, like, the perineal tissue is designed to stretch. It's also designed to tear and repair. So episiotomies, first and second degree tears, I think people need to stop worrying so much about, because they can be repaired very beautifully and well. And so I think the fear of pushing, in a sense, is probably creating a lot of that residual resistance, and people are afraid of going into that sensation into their bodies. And I think to push, it can sometimes happen completely naturally. The woman hardly has to do anything at all. The body just does it all by itself, and we just even slow it down, let it happen. And other times we need to really get behind the pushing, but push from the baby's bottom and not into your bottom. So I talk about trying to oxygenate and use our coffee plunger breaths, which is a bit too tricky to demonstrate here, but you can exhale and still send the baby oxygen and yourself, and push from your upper abs. Tighten here while you soften the pelvic floor. So let it stretch, let it soften, and beautiful warm compresses and being in a good optimal position is going to help that part of the body open as well.
One thing that helped me so much from your She Births program was just going into the day feeling confident and not having anxiety going into it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women have. I just felt really confident that I was going to be able to, I don't know. I felt confident in both my doctor, and I felt confident in myself, and I felt confident that my husband would be a good coach. And I think your program helped to get me there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you know what? You summed it up there. I just caught your baby. You did all the work.
Oh, come on.
It's down to your inner strength. And I think women undervalue or underestimate how strong they are.
Yeah, but
and how much they create and do. Really, I was cheering you on.
Oh, thank you.
You were doing all the work.
Well, thank you.
I think learning in your pregnancy to drop the judgment of yourself is such a great way to launch into parenthood, because the last thing we need is to feel isolated, and that's what judgment does. If we're judging ourselves, we stay at home in our own little bubbles, and we go to mothers groups and we start judging everyone else, and that happens a lot. But we don't need to. We need the sisterhood, we need the village, we need women that are empowered and happy, and that's how you're going to be the best mum.
Yes.